CNN fact checks Night 1 of the RNC, new footage of the Jacob Blake shooting surfaces, and Night 2 of the RNC. All that and more on this episode of The Johnny Ray Show. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to Night 2 of the RNC coverage right here on the Johnny Ray Show. Before we get to the Night 2 coverage, we're going to talk about a couple of things. One being that CNN finally decided that they were going to pull out the fact checks, but it was only during the Republican National Convention, not the Democrat, last week. We'll talk more about that, but first. Today, podcasts are all the rage. Everyone wants a voice, and now Anchor has given you that voice. Anchor is the easiest way to podcast, whether it's political or fun, about parenting, or just your day-to-day routine. Anchor is the free, easy way to get heard. Anchor allows you to create, edit, and publish your podcast right from your smartphone or your computer. Anchor will distribute the podcast for you, so you don't have to. It's everything you need to create a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's Anchor, ANCHOR.FM to get started. Okay, so for those of you that tuned in last week to the DNC coverage here on the Johnny Ray Show, you'll notice that CNN praised the DNC, but 7 days later, they finally decided to pull out the fact-checking. But it wasn't on the DNC. It was only on the RNC. That little tricky there, but they failed. Everybody missed the memo that only the RNC can be fact checked. CNN can't. You can't expect CNN to fact check the Democrats. That's absurd. It's preposterous. Listen, if you're looking at CNN to be your moral, factual compass, you're facting wrong. I'm telling you right now. That's just plain and simple. But nonetheless, CNN released their fact-checking of Night 1 of the RNC, and as much as it pains me to read anything that CNN writes, I'm going to go over the facts, and I'm going to fact-check their fact-checking. Okay? So, bear with me for just a moment. This is the fact-checking of CNN's fact-checks. They first fact-checked the China-Biden reference by Don Jr. And it says Donald Trump Jr. referenced a report from the U.S. Intelligence Committee in claiming that China preferred Biden for the presidency because he would weaken the U.S. economy. His direct quote is, "Beijing Biden is so weak on China that the intelligence community recently assessed that the Chinese Communist Party favors Biden. They know he'll weaken us both economically and on a world stage." Their next paragraph is their facts section. This is where they check that fact, okay? Mind you, you're only checking facts if you're saying that what they said was wrong. Remember that, because that comes up quite a bit. It's called facts first. They say, while Trump Jr. might be asserting his opinion here, his characterization of the recent assessment from the U.S. intelligence community is misleading. The U.S. intelligence community did not determine that China preferred Biden because he would economically or otherwise weaken the U.S. Rather, it outlined that China preferred that President Donald Trump lose the election because he was quote-unquote unpredictable and because of the many actions he had taken against China. We don't want Biden to win, per se. We want Trump to lose. That's the same damn thing. You can't just rearrange what was said and say that what Don Jr. said was false. You can't. It's not misleading. He specifically stated that they wanted Biden to win. If there are two people running for president, and I say I want one person to win, that's the same as me saying I want the other person to lose. Okay? That's the same thing. And anybody who thinks that's not the same thing is a moron. An uneducated, stupid, moronic, idiot, dumb, insert whatever lower education comment you'd like. They're all the same. Okay? So the next thing was the guns. Jim Jordan, representative from Ohio, claims that Democrats were trying to confiscate the U.S. citizens' guns. This is the quote they use. They are also trying to take away your guns. Facts First says some Democrats have supported a mandatory gun confiscation buyback. That's where you need to stop, right there. They go on, but that's all they needed to say, because that proves what Jim Jordan said was true. He didn't say Joe Biden wants to take your guns. He didn't say Kamala Harris wants to take your guns, although both have been very public about anti-gun. He didn't say that. He said they, meaning Democrats. Democrats as a whole, generally. And here come facts first. Some Democrats have supported a mandatory gun confiscation buyback. Yeah, that's what he said. Democrats are trying to take away your guns. CNN is proving over multiple times now that you don't have to have much of an IQ to write for them, or to work for them, or to be on TV for them. I mean, Stelter proves it every day, but I digress. That's all you have to say. Some Democrats have supported a mandatory gun confiscation buyback. They go on to say Joe Biden, the Democratic nominee, instead supports a voluntary buyback program. But just a few months ago, maybe a year ago now, it all kind of blends together, he specifically picked Beto to be his gun guy. For those of you who haven't been following along, Beto O'Rourke, Francis Beto O'Rourke, he's the guy that said, "You're damn right we want your guns." That's what he said. Seems to me like Joe Biden would support that if he's gonna talk to Beto about being in his cabinet on the gun committee. But I digress. So, the next one here is government takeover of healthcare. Says former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley, I do gotta say I like her, but anyway, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley attacked Democratic positions on healthcare. It says here, quote unquote, from Nikki Haley, they want a government takeover of healthcare. Facts first. Facts first, this is what they say. This is true of some Democrats. Again, with this some Democrats. Okay. When a person says they, okay, I'm going to break this down just as simply as I can, because obviously CNN is not very intelligent. If somebody says they are generalizing an entire group. Kind of like when you numbnuts say they, the police, okay? When you say they, you're generalizing an entire group, not one person. The Republican National Convention well, not like the Democratic National Convention, because they were all about just one guy. The Republican National Convention is pointing out what the Democrats as a whole want. And I'll tell you why, and this is breaking news, okay? Take this to the bank, or to the post office if you're Joe Biden. We as Republicans know Joe Biden is not going to be president very long if his snowball chance in hell to win comes to fruition. We know that. We're not stupid. Okay? We understand as a whole that Joe Biden is like that guy on the Muppets. The guy up there in the skybox, the two old guys arguing back and forth. He's that guy. He's a puppet. Okay? He is not going to be president for much more than a couple of months before they deem him unfit, stick him in a crazy home, and Kamala Harris takes over as president. Okay, we're not stupid. So we don't need to talk about Joe Biden and his uneducated 50, 60 years in public office not doing anything. But now all of a sudden he's going to show up like Captain Save America and take everybody under his wing, okay? We know we don't need to do that. We have to talk about Democrats as a whole. Because in 2 months after the election, there's going to be new people running the Democrats. It's going to be people like Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, as god-awful as that sounds. So when we say they, or the Democrats, you don't need to fact check us and say Joe Biden didn't say it. We don't care if Joe Biden said it or not. 9 times out of 10 he did say it, because the internet's forever. But we don't care whether or not he specifically said it. His party, who he represents in the election, said it. There's been plenty of Democrats, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Nancy Pelosi, Elizabeth Warren, Tulsi Gabbard, plenty of those left-wing Fruit Loop dinguses have said it. It doesn't matter whether Joe Biden specifically said it, although, if you want to get down to brass tacks, he does support a single-payer health care because he, along with Barack, wrote the Obamacare Act, which was a single-payer health care. And then on top of that, he forced people with jail time to either get it or go to jail. That's pretty indicative of him supporting a single-payer health care system. You freaking idiots. Anyway, so the next one was the middle class. Okay, and this one I particularly find funny. It says, in praising his father Monday night, Donald Trump Jr., they fact-checked Donald Trump Jr. quite a bit. Maybe it's because he talked a lot. Maybe it's because they just don't like him. I'm going to go with the latter. Anyway, Donald Trump Jr. pushed the idea that middle class has benefited from President Trump's economic policies. Quote unquote, after 8 years of Obama and Biden's slow growth, Trump's policies have been like rocket fuel to the economy, and especially the middle class. Facts first, okay? Facts first. Actually, middle class income grew in the final years of Obama administration, but has stagnated under Trump. Median household income stayed essentially flat in 2018 at $63,200, breaking a 3-year streak of increases according to the most recent Census Bureau data. So, let me get this straight. 2018 stagnated. Okay? So we'll take from 2018 back. it says in the final year of Obama, that would be 2016. Okay, so you got 2016, 2017, and 2018. Okay. It had a 3-year streak of increases. Now that's from 2016 to 2018. 2016, 2017, 2018. 2 of those 3 years was under the Trump administration, you dumb, stupid, ignorant God. Anyway, so they fact checked their own fact check by saying that it did increase under Trump for 2 of the first 4 years, apparently. It also says that median income ticked up only 1.8% in 2017. Still an increase. Still an increase. Okay? What they don't tell you is that in 8 years under Barack Obama, we saw roughly $1,000 per household increase. Under the entire 8 years. Over the entire 8 years, about $1,000. Under Trump, in just 4, 3, if you don't count this year, because this year sucked with the coronavirus. Either way, I digress. Under the first 4 years of the Trump administration, it's been $5,000 higher. That's a fact. If you don't believe me, check for yourself. That's a fact. 1,000 under 8 years, 5,000 in 4 years. Who's had the better uptick? I wonder who. Again, don't have to have much common sense to work for CNN. Next one was police funding. Ohio Representative Jim Jordan implied, so now they're fact-checking what somebody meant. Not what they said, but what they meant. Okay? They're fact-checking the thoughts. These are the thought police now. Or the thought... I don't know what you would call that, because you don't want police, they don't like police. So you can't be the thought police, you'd be like the thought representatives of equal justice. I don't know. I have a headache now. Anyway, Ohio Representative Jim Jordan implies Democrats want to, they put in quotes, defund the police. Like that changes the meaning of that phrase. I don't know. And House Minority Whip Steve Scalise said the left wants to defund the police. Facts first. While some Democrats have joined calls for a radical shift in police policy, including a reduction in police budgets, top congressional Democrats and Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden have not supported calls to defund the police. And they, again, quote-unquoted defund the police, like that changes what that means. It says Biden's published criminal justice plan called for $300 million investment in community policing efforts, including the hiring of more officers. On June 8th, Biden told CBS, "No, I don't support defunding the police. Rather," he said, "I support conditioning federal aid to police based on whether or not they meet certain standards of decency and honorableness, and in fact are able to demonstrate they can protect the community and everybody in the community." Two things wrong with this. A, if you withhold funding based on any fact, based on any reasonable standard, that's defunding. Okay? That's the basic definition in Webster's dictionary of defunding. To take funds away from a specific group of people. That's defunding by basic standards. 2, who makes the decision of the basic standards of decency and honorableness? Is it you? Because if so, then we're going to have a lot of police running around, and instead of shooting people and arresting people, they're going to be sniffing people. Okay? Who makes that determination? Because nowhere in the Constitution does it give the President of the United States the right to determine who is decent and honorable. In fact, it's the opposite. The Constitution puts up checks and balances because nobody has the ability to say somebody is decent or not decent, or honorable or not honorable. That's why we have the judicial system. And if you turn around and say, well, the judicial system is who will dictate who is honorable and decent and not honorable and not decent, that's the same people that you don't like, because you say that our justice system is failing. So who is going to make the basis of who is decent and honorable? And 2, the person you picked for Vice President, slow Joe Biden, is on record of saying she wants to defund the police, because by the basic definition, she provides defunding the police. Take a listen to Kamala Harris.
So, Megan, I think that a big part of this conversation really is about reimagining how we do public safety in America, which I support, which is this. We have confused the idea that to achieve safety, you put more cops on the street, instead of understanding to achieve safe and healthy communities, you put more resources into the public education system of those communities, into affordable housing, into home ownership, into access to capital for small businesses, access to health care regardless of how much money people have. That's how you achieve safe and healthy communities. And so we really do need to understand and reimagine what and how we can actually make and help make communities safe.
That's defunding, you ignorant schmucks. To take funds away from the police and put them in other areas is defunding! It doesn't matter what you call it, it's defunding, you ignoramuses. I don't understand. I don't grasp how a person with simply a high school education and a little bit of military has to educate the people who are attempting to run our country. You ignorant idiots. Anyway, on to the next one. Unemployment. This one fact checks multiple speakers. Representative Vernon Jones, Representative Jim Jordan, and Mark McCloskey touted the low unemployment rate America has witnessed under the Trump administration. Both Jordan and McCloskey credited the president for the lowest unemployment in 50 years, while Jones said that President Trump, quote unquote, built the most inclusive economy ever with record low unemployment for African Americans. End quote. Facts first. CNN. On the job. This is misleadingly outdated, as it ignores the economic destruction caused by the coronavirus pandemic. Well, no shit, Sherlock. While the U.S. unemployment rate fell to a seasonally adjusted rate of 3.5 last September, its lowest since 1969, the pandemic has put a definitive end to America's strong jobs market, and millions of people remain out of work. First of all, okay, I think everybody's on board with the pandemic ruining the economy, because You, ignoramuses, took everybody out of their job. Wouldn't let them go to work. Wouldn't let them go to church. Wouldn't let them go to schools. Wouldn't let them go to the grocery store. Well, no, you could go to the grocery store and you can riot, but you can't go to work. CNN, on the job. Work from home. Riot in the streets. Anyway, you fact-checked your own fact-check. Because at no point in time did any of those people, the one that you quoted or the ones you just grazed over, at no point in time did any of them say, right now. Right now. Because we all know that right now, the COVID-19, that racist, homophobic, xenophobic disease killing only black people and people going to church, people going to work, and people going to the parks and the beaches. Not the ones rioting. It's not killing them. That bastard. Anyway, we all know that the economy sucks right now. But that doesn't change the last 3.5 years of the economy being the greatest economy in history. Ignoramus. He did have the lowest unemployment for African Americans and minorities. He did have the highest GDP growth. He did have record NASDAQ and stock market through the roof. He did. You can't change that. Because 3.5 years, almost 4, he's had that. It wasn't until you idiots decided that we couldn't go to work, we couldn't go to school, we had to stay home and cover our faces because of the horrible disease that has a, 99.96 survival rate? I think you answered your own fact check, you idiots. Again, you don't have to have a high IQ to work at CNN. On to the next one. This is the best one. This is the best one. Xenophobic accusation. Donald Trump Jr. claimed that Joe Biden had called President Donald Trump a racist and a xenophobe for having imposed travel restrictions on China. Fact check. Fact first. CNN on the job. Biden did accuse Trump of xenophobia. That's all you need to say. That's it. That's all you needed. They go on to spill out more idiocy, but that's all you needed to say. You fact-checked your own fact-check. Good job, CNN. I'm so glad you're on the job. Biden did accuse Trump of xenophobia in an Iowa campaign speech the same day that Health and Human Services Secretary Alex Azar announced the Trump administration's travel restrictions on China. That's all you had to say. That's it. You fact-checked your own fact-check. Good job. They go on to say, but it was not clear if Biden was even aware of the travel restrictions at the time. I don't think Biden's very aware of anything at any time, to be perfectly honest. But you can't tell me he didn't know about it because it was announced at around 7:30-ish in the morning. Biden said it at 4:15-ish in the afternoon. You can't tell me he didn't know. I mean, granted, he doesn't know his own name without a name tag, but he knew. Come on. Don't be stupid. Come on. The fact of the matter is that you fact-checked your own fact-check, and you look stupid. Every one of these that I have seen have been the most ignorant, uneducated drivel. And almost all of them, in their facts first, have fact-checked their own fact-check, making my job much easier. Thank you, CNN. On the job. Always here. Fact-checking our own fact-checks. With fact-checks. Of the fact-checks. With more fact-checks. Okay, so new video surfaces of the Jacob Blake shooting from a different angle and a bit more context before what the initial video showed. But it showed exactly what most everyone with two brain cells to rub together have been saying, which is Jacob Blake resisted being arrested and detained. The video shows the two officers have him on the ground. One tases him, which had no effect seemingly, and they were on top of him trying to subdue him non-violently, of course, when he got loose and began his walk around the front of the vehicle, which is where the initial video had picked up. So, I can expect the lot of Twitter ignoramuses who have been screaming for the last 24 hours about how the officer should have tried to be non-lethal. I expect you all to walk back your uneducated remarks. Now, do I think that you will? No. Not at all. Not in the slightest. If anything, I can expect more stupidity coming from you. But do I think that you should? Because they're not going to age well, as they have in every other incident with involving police and shooting a African-American fellow? Yes. Now, if you watch the videos, you can see that they followed the chain of deadly force fairly well. The only thing we haven't seen so far is them trying to calmly talk to him, which I assume happened prior to them having him on the ground. But when the action began to escalate, which is where the two videos seem to pick up, that you see them attempt to detain him without guns. That did not work. He was a fairly burly fellow. He's not small by no means. He's not huge. He's, average build. That did not work, so they tried to tase him. Which is completely illogical of people to say, well, why wouldn't they tase him first? Which is what they've been screaming. Because just a few months ago, you were angry about a cop that tased a guy while in the car. So it's a never-ending story with everybody about double standards and when it's okay to do things and when it's not okay to do things. And I personally, I've said this a couple times and I stand by it. I think that everybody who has been screaming about defunding the police, the Antifa, the Black Lives Matter, the celebrities, the sports figures, the actors and actresses, all these people, I think we should slap a uniform on them. Don't give them a gun, unarmed, okay? And stick them out on the streets for just a week. Just 1 week. 1 7-day period from a Monday to a Sunday. And let them police the entire United States. I guarantee you, most of them, with the exception of the ones that are policing the conservative places, because those are the ones that aren't full of morons, I guarantee you they will all walk away with a different look on police. It's a guarantee. I say we do it. I want to know what suggestion box I need to put that in. Because I think that would work. I think that it would show a completely different side to the entire defund the police protest you guys have going on here. And now on to the main event. Night 2. The night started off with Rand Paul, who I thought was a pretty good speech. It was definitely the best to start off with. Here, take a listen.
Good evening. I'm Senator Rand Paul from Kentucky. Donald Trump and I met many years ago, before he was running for anything. When I first met him, I recall being struck by how down-to-earth he was. He seemed like just a normal guy. Okay, a normal guy with his own plane and helicopter, but who's counting? I was planning a medical mission trip to Guatemala to perform charity eye surgeries, and we needed money to fund the trip. Donald Trump offered to help and immediately came through for us. Not only did he support my medical mission to Guatemala, but he also contributed to another mission trip to Haiti a year later. We performed hundreds of cataract surgeries in both countries. Nothing is more amazing than removing the bandages from a person's eyes and watching them as they see their loved ones again. Donald Trump helped me make that happen. A few years later, we were opponents, both running for president, and we all know how that turned out. But I'm proud of the job Donald Trump has done as president. I don't always agree with him, but our occasional policy differences are far outweighed by our significant agreements. But more important than simple agreement is accomplishment. President Trump gets things done. When some in Congress wanted a so-called revenue-neutral tax plan, Donald Trump and I worked together to make sure that it was a true tax cut. I brought President Trump an idea for better, less expensive health insurance called Association Health Plans. Donald Trump overturned years of red tape and bureaucrats, and he made it happen. While others talked about criminal justice reform, President Trump actually signed the First Step Act, the first real reform in a generation, and one that sought to undo the harm that others, like Joe Biden, have done. For those of us who lament the Biden crime bill that locked up a generation of young black men, remember that Biden bragged about a bill that still wreaks havoc among people of color. I'm supporting President Trump because he believes, as I do, that a strong America cannot fight endless wars. We must not continue to leave our blood and treasure in Middle East quagmires. I flew with him to Dover Air Force Base to honor 2 soldiers whose remains were coming home from Afghanistan. I'll never forget that evening. I can tell you the president not only felt the pain of these families, but that the president is committed to ending this war. President Trump is the first president in a generation to seek to end war rather than start one. He intends to end the war in Afghanistan. He is bringing our men and women home. Madison once wrote, "No nation can preserve its freedom in the midst of continuous warfare." I'm proud to finally see a president who agrees with that. Compare President Trump with the disastrous record of Joe Biden, who has consistently called for more war. Joe Biden voted for the Iraq War, which President Trump has long called the worst geopolitical mistake of our generation. I fear Biden will choose war again. He supported the war in Serbia, Syria, Libya. Joe Biden will continue to spill our blood and treasure. President Trump will bring our heroes home. If you hate war like I hate war, if you want us to quit sending $50 billion every year to Afghanistan to build their roads and bridges instead of building them here at home, you need to support President Trump for another term. So to our soldiers and their families, join me in supporting President Trump. To those of you who want lower taxes and better, less expensive health care, join me in supporting President Trump. To those of you who want to stand up and fight the socialists poisoning our schools and burning our cities, join me in supporting President Trump. Let's rebuild America together.
You know, I like this starting off the night. It was a good sight to see a man who opposed Trump in 2016 to finally come around to now supporting him. For Rand Paul to speak about not only his personal experiences, but to the policies that Trump has passed to show the light of the Trump administration. I especially like how he spotlighted Joe Biden's support of the wars over the 50-plus years in D.C. I think that was a particularly nice touch. Next up, I want to highlight Abby Johnson, the former director of Planned Parenthood, who I think was probably the best non-professional speaker. I don't know if you'd consider her a professional or non-professional now, because she has been professionally speaking since she left Planned Parenthood, but of the not political speakers, I think that she was probably one of the best of the night. Take a listen.
My name is Abby Johnson, and I spent 8 years working for Planned Parenthood, but today I am a pro-life activist. When I was in college, Planned Parenthood approached me at a volunteer fair. They talked about helping women in crisis and their commitment to keep abortion safe, legal, and rare. I was convinced to volunteer and later offered a full-time job as a medical assistant before my promotion to director of the clinic. I truly believed I was helping women, but things drastically changed in 2009. In April, I was awarded Planned Parenthood's Employee of the Year Award and invited to their annual gala where they present the Margaret Sanger Award, named for their founder. And Margaret Sanger was a racist who believed in eugenics. Her goal when founding Planned Parenthood was to eradicate the minority population. Today, almost 80% of Planned Parenthood abortion facilities are strategically located in minority neighborhoods. And every year, Planned Parenthood celebrates its racist roots by presenting the Margaret Sanger Award. Later in August, my supervisor assigned me a new quota to meet, an abortion quota. I was expected to sell double the abortions performed the previous year. When I pushed back, underscoring Planned Parenthood's public-facing goal of decreasing abortions, I was reprimanded and told, "Abortion is how we make our money." But the tipping point came a month later when a physician asked me to assist with an ultrasound-guided abortion. Nothing prepared me for what I saw on the screen. An unborn baby fighting back, desperate to move away from the suction. And I'll never forget what the doctor said next. "Beam me up, Scotty." The last thing I saw was a spine twirling around in the mother's womb before succumbing to the force of the suction. On October 6th, I left the clinic, looking back only to remember why I now advocate so passionately for life. I founded and currently run And Then There Were None, a nonprofit organization that's helped nearly 600 abortion workers transition out of the industry. For most people who consider themselves pro-life, abortion is abstract. They can't even conceive of the barbarity. They don't know about the products of conception room and abortion clinics where infant corpses are pieced back together to ensure nothing remains in the mother's wombs, or that we joked and called it the pieces of children room. You see, for me, abortion is real. I know what it sounds like. I know what abortion smells like. Did you know abortion even had a smell? I've been the perpetrator to these babies, to these women. And I now support President Trump because he has done more for the unborn than any other president. During his first month in office, he banned federal funds for global health groups that promote abortion. That same year, he overturned an Obama-Biden rule that allowed government subsidy of abortion. He appointed a record number of pro-life judges, including 2 Supreme Court justices. And importantly, he announced a new rule protecting the rights of healthcare workers objecting to abortion, many of whom I work with every day. Life is a core tenet of who we are as Americans. And this election is a choice between 2 radical anti-life activists and the most pro-life president we have ever had. That's something that should compel you to action. Go door to door, make calls, talk to your neighbors and friends, and vote on November 3rd. Take action that reelects our president, and do it with our very most vulnerable Americans in mind. the ones who haven't been born yet.
I love this because it shows the darkness of abortion and the pro-choice crowd. If anyone can listen to just the description of the abortion and have an easy stomach, you're not human, okay? You're not. You're a cyborg from some random manufacturing plant. Put aside the choose and not choose argument and listen to that description. It is unsettling, to say the least. That's horrible. Horrible to describe that. And for anybody that could sit back and say that that's okay, that that's an alright thing to do, makes you next to nothing to me, in my opinion. So next I want to show my new BFF, the kid who beat the fake news, Nick Sandmann, okay? And this was by far the best. This was the best. As far as trolling goes, this was the greatest speaker that could have been chosen to speak at the Republican National Convention. After what he did and what he went through, this was the greatest troll move Trump could have ever done. Take a listen to this.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Nick Sandmann, and I'm the teenager who was defamed by the media after an encounter with a group of protesters on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial last year. Before I begin, I'd like to thank President Trump for the opportunity to share some of my story and why it matters so much to this November's election. In 2019, I attended the March for Life in Washington, D.C., where I demonstrated in defense of the unborn. Later that day, I bought a Make America Great Again hat because our president, Donald Trump, has distinguished himself as one of the most pro-life presidents in the history of our country, and I wanted to express my support for him too. Looking back now, how could I have possibly imagined that the simple act of putting on that red hat would unleash hate from the left and make myself the target of network and cable news networks nationwide? Being from Kentucky, the birthplace of Abraham Lincoln, my classmates and I visited the Lincoln Memorial. I found myself face to face with Nathan Phillips and other professional protesters looking to turn me into the latest poster child showing why Trump is bad, while the media portrayed me as an aggressor with a relentless smirk on my face. In reality, the video confirms I was standing with my hands behind my back and an awkward smile on my face that hid two thoughts. One, don't do anything that might further agitate the man banging a drum in my face. And two, I was trying to follow a family friend's advice, never to do anything to embarrass your family, your school, or your community. Before I knew what was happening, it was over. One of Mr. Phillips' fellow agitators yelled out, "We got him. It's all right here on video. And we won, Grandpa." What I thought was a strange encounter quickly developed into a major news story, complete with video footage. My life changed forever in that one moment. The full war machine of the mainstream media revved up into attack mode. They did so without researching the full video of the incident, without ever investigating Mr. Phillips' motives, or without ever asking me for my side of the story. And do you know why? Because the truth was not important. Advancing their anti-Christian, anti-conservative, anti-Donald Trump narrative was all that mattered. And if advancing their narrative ruined the reputation and future of a teenager from Covington, Kentucky, well, so be it. That would teach him not to wear a MAGA hat. I learned what was happening to me had a name. It was called being canceled, as in annulled, as in revoked, as in made void. Canceled is what's happening to people around this country who refuse to be silenced by the far left. Many are being fired, humiliated, or even threatened. And often, the media is a willing participant. But I would not be canceled. I fought back hard to expose the media for what they did to me, and I won a personal victory. While much more must be done, I look forward to the day that the media returns to providing balanced, responsible, and accountable news coverage. I know President Trump hopes for that too. And I know you'll agree with me when we say that no one in this country has been a victim of unfair media coverage more than President Donald Trump. In November, I believe this country must unite around a president who calls the media out and refuses to allow them to create a narrative instead of reporting the facts. I believe we must join a president who will challenge the media to return to objective journalism. And together, I believe we must all embrace our First Amendment rights and not hide in fear of the media or from the tech companies or from the outrage mob either. This is worth fighting for. This is worth voting for. And this is what Donald Trump stands for. Thank you all for listening to me tonight. And one more thing. Let's make America great again.
You know, I love Trump's genius in this RNC. He's spotlighting all the crazy leftist BS without even saying it, just by having the speakers. Maximo Alvarez last night, which I'll talk about on Friday, that was an amazing speech. Abby Johnson, and now Nick Sandmann. Ah, yes. He's a genius. He truly is. He is next level troll, really, because nothing is greater than seeing Nick Sandmann on CNN bashing CNN while being paid by CNN. Just perfecto. Next up, I'll run them together, is Tiffany and Eric Trump. Take a listen to what they had to say.
I'm Tiffany Trump. Since speaking at the Republican convention 4 years ago, so much has changed for the world, for our country, and for my family. Like so many students across the world, I graduated from law school during the pandemic. Our generation is unified in the facing the future in uncertain times. And many of us are considering what kind of country we want to live in. As a recent graduate, I can relate to so many of you who might be looking for a job. My father built a thriving economy once, and believe me, he will do it again. This election, I urge each and every one of you to transcend political boundaries. This is a fight for freedom versus oppression, for opportunity versus stagnation, a fight to keep America true to America. I urge you to make judgment based on results and not rhetoric. If you believe in criminal justice reform, there is only one president that passed the First Step Act, giving people a second chance, a chance at a life once again. And if you believe in expanding quality and affordable health care, only President Trump, my father, signed the right to try into law the Favored Nations Clause and other actions to lower drug prices and keep Americans from getting ripped off. People must recognize that our thoughts, our opinions, and even the choice of who we are voting for may and are being manipulated and visibly coerced by the media and tech giants. If you tune into the media, you get one biased opinion or another. And what you share, if it does not fit into the narrative that they seek to promote, then it is either ignored or deemed a lie, regardless of the truth. This manipulation of what information we receive impedes our freedoms. Rather than allowing Americans the right to form our own beliefs, this misinformation system keeps people mentally enslaved to the ideas they deem correct. This has fostered unnecessary fear and divisiveness amongst us. Why are so many in media and technology, and even in our own government, so invested in promoting a biased and fabricated view? Ask yourselves, why are we prevented from seeing certain information? Why is one viewpoint promoted while others are hidden? The answer is control, because division and controversy breed profit. But what are the consequences when only one side of the story gets out, or when only one viewpoint is acceptable? For our education system, it meant sacrificing civil debate by creating an atmosphere where students with contrary opinions are too afraid to speak. Many students find themselves suppressing their beliefs to fit into what the acceptable groupthink is. In short, our nation suffers by inhibiting our diversity of thought and inclusion of ideas. Working together outside of our political comfort zones will accomplish so much more. Some cynical politicians do not seem to believe in the miracle of America. Well, I do. As Maximo Alvarez said so eloquently last night, if freedom is lost in this country, there is nowhere else to go. Having hope is not weakness, and believing in miracles is a gift from God. So tonight, I want to tell you the uncensored truth of what we believe in. We believe in equality of opportunity. We believe in freedom of thought and expression. Think what you want. Seek out the truth. Learn from those with different opinions, and then freely make your voice heard to the world. We believe in school choice because a child's zip code in America should not determine their future. We believe in freedom of religion for all faiths, and we believe in the American spirit, a country founded on ideas, not identity, a country where our differences are embraced, and the only country where the word dream has been attached to it. Because in America, your life is yours to chart. So if you're hearing these things and thinking to yourself, that is the kind of country that I want to live in, well, whether you realize it or not, you are a Trump supporter. I encourage you to see beyond the facade that so many other politicians employ. They mask themselves in disguises of decency as they try to pressure us to mask our own identities and beliefs. My father is the only person to challenge the establishment, the entrenched bureaucracy, big pharma, and media monopolies to ensure that Americans' constitutional freedoms are upheld and that justice and truth prevail. My father does not run away from challenges, even in the face of outright hatred, because fighting for America is something he will sacrifice anything for. He dreams big dreams for our country, and he is relentless at achieving them. You see, Make America Great Again is not a slogan for my father. It is what drives him to keep his promise of doing what is right for American citizens. The energy of change and opportunity is with us. God has blessed us with unstoppable spirit, his spirit, the American spirit. My dad has proven to be driven by that spirit. He has demonstrated his faith and his uncompromising heart and actions. My father has made me believe that America can truly be great again. If you care about living your life without restraints, about rebelling against those who would suppress your voice and building your American dream, then the choice in this election is clear. A vote for my father, Donald J. Trump, is a vote to uphold our American ideals. Be true to yourself and stay true to the dream of America.
Good evening, America. When I stood on this convention stage 4 years ago, no one fully understood the historic change that was about to take place. We could all feel it. Something was happening. A movement was forming just below the surface. The forgotten man and woman, voiceless in Washington, D.C., were preparing to rise up. Our movement followed the pattern of so many that came before us. First, we were ignored. Then we were laughed at. Then they fought us. And then, together, we won. From that moment forward, America came first. America started winning again. America became respected again. But with every movement, there's a counter-movement. In the view of the radical Democrats, America is the source of the world's problems. As a result, they believe the only path forward is to erase history and forget the past. They want to destroy the monuments of our forefathers. They want to disrespect our flag, burn the stars and stripes that represent patriotism and the American dream. They want to disrespect our national anthem by taking a knee while our armed forces lay down their lives every day to protect our freedom. They do not want the Pledge of Allegiance in our schools. Many of them don't want one nation under God. The Democrats want to defund and disrespect our law enforcement. The Democrats want an America where your thoughts and opinions are censored when they do not align with their own. President Reagan said, "Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. It must be fought for, and it must be protected." This is the fight that we are in right now, and it is a fight that only my father can win. My father ran not because he needed the job, but because he knew hardworking people across this great country were being left behind. The media mocked these patriots in the flyover states in which they lived. They ignored the Trump flags. They ignored the millions of MAGA banners and barns painted in red, white, and blue. The silent majority had no one fighting for them in either party. Their so-called leaders were bowing to China, bribing Iran, and spending more time worrying about how they'd be received by the elites in Paris than how Americans would provide for their families in Pittsburgh. Our family lost friends, but it only pushed us to fight harder. My father pledged to every American in every city, state, and town that he was going to make America great again. And so began the Great American Comeback. Almost immediately, taxes were slashed, regulations were cut, and the economy soared to new heights, heights never seen before. Wages went through the roof. Unemployment reached the historic lows, especially for Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, and women. Trade deals were ripped up and renegotiated. Lights were turned back on in abandoned factories across our country. Trillions of dollars were repatriated back to the United States, which had been sitting in foreign lands for far too long. Once again, America became the envy of the world. And with that renewed strength came leverage. The president demanded that our allies pay their fair share for the defense of the Western world. My father rebuilt the mighty American military, adding new jets, aircraft carriers. He increased wages for our incredible men and women in uniform. He expanded our military defense budget to $721 billion per year. America was no longer weak in the eye of the enemy. The moment President Trump ordered special forces kill some of the deadliest terrorists on the planet, the day the mighty Moab was dropped on insurgent camps, is the day America took a stance to never be defeated by the enemy. Al-Baghdadi, Soleimani, dead. Over and over, issue after issue, the economy, the wall, the military, trade deals, tax cuts, Supreme Court justices, VA hospitals, prescription drugs, school choice, right to try, moving the embassy to Jerusalem, peace in the Middle East. Never-ending wars were finally ended. Promises made and promises for the first time were kept. Most politicians spend their entire careers in Washington, D.C. and get absolutely nothing accomplished. For example, Joe Biden. Joe Biden is a politician who has been in government for 47 years. He's a career politician who's never signed the front of a check and does not know the slightest thing about the American worker or the American business, the engine which fuels the greatest economy the world has ever known. The same politician who has been a total pushover for communist China, and someone who would be a giant relief for terrorists who now spent years running, hiding, and being taken out by the most talented military known to man. Joe Biden has pledged to raise your taxes by $4 trillion. 82% of Americans will see their taxes go up significantly. Biden has pledged to stop border wall construction and give amnesty and health care to all illegal immigrants. Biden has pledged to defund the police and take away your cherished Second Amendment. My father, on the other hand, delivered the largest tax cuts in American history, knows if you do not have a border, you do not have a country, and will always support law enforcement and your right to keep and bear arms. Every day, my father fights for the American people, the forgotten man and woman of this country, the ones who embody the American spirit, which is unlike anything else in the world. It built the New York City skyline. It built the Hoover Dam. And soon, under my father's leadership, it will send Americans to Mars. The American spirit can be felt in the majesty of the Grand Canyon, the shadows of Mount Rushmore, and the stillness of the air at Gettysburg. It can be seen in the wide-eyed wonder of every American child as they take their first breath in the greatest country the world has ever known. It defeated fascism, it defeated communism, and in 68 days, it will defeat the empty, oppressive, and radical views of the extreme left. Ronald Reagan's quote ends with this simple warning. One day we could spend our sunset years telling our children what it was once like in the United States where men and women were free. Under President Trump, freedom will never be a thing of the past. That's what a vote for Donald Trump represents. It's a vote for the American spirit, the American dream, and for the American flag. To the law enforcement officer who's being attacked, betrayed, and whose job they are trying to make extinct, my father will fight for you. To all houses of worship and to all people of faith stripped of our religious freedoms and religious liberties, my father will fight for you. To the voiceless, shamed, censored, and canceled, my father will fight for you. To our farmers who work dawn to dusk to keep our plates full, my father will fight for you. To every single mother and father, to our veterans, our coal miners, and to the American worker, my father will fight for you. And to every proud American who bleeds red, white, and blue, my father will continue to fight for you. In closing, I'd like to speak directly to my father. I miss working alongside you every single day, but I'm damn proud to be on the front lines of this fight. I'm proud of what you are doing for this country. I'm proud to show my children what their grandfather is fighting for. I'm proud to watch you give them hell. Never stop. Continue to be unapologetic. Keep fighting for what is right. You are making America strong again. You are making America safe again. You are making America proud again. And yes, together with a forgotten man and woman who are finally forgotten no more, you are making America great again. Dad, let's make Uncle Robert very proud this week. Let's go get another 4 years. I love you very much. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
And those two are more great personal speeches about Trump. Neither were hugely impactful, but both great, although Eric did seem to get fired up a bit toward the end. And, I mean, who could really blame him? I mean, if my father went through as much as his dad's went through in 4 years, I'd probably be fired up too. But finally, we get to Melania Trump, who was a magnificent speech. Probably up there for one of the greatest ones for the night, in my opinion, personally. Here's her speech. Take a listen to what she had to say.
It seems like just yesterday that we were at our first convention, where my husband accepted the Republican nomination and then became our 45th President of the United States. Yet the energy and enthusiasm for who should lead this nation, it is real today as it was 4 years ago. I know I speak for my husband and the entire family when I say we have not forgotten the incredible people who were willing to take a chance on the businessmen who had never worked in politics. We know it was you who elected him to be Commander-in-Chief, and we know it is you who will carry us through again. We were humbled by the incredible support then, and we are still grateful today. I want to acknowledge the fact that since March, our lives have changed drastically. The invisible enemy, COVID-19, swept across our beautiful country and impacted all of us. My deepest sympathy goes out to everyone who has lost a loved one, and my prayers are with those who are ill or suffering. I know many people are anxious and some feel helpless. I want you to know you're not alone. My husband's administration will not stop fighting until there is an effective treatment or vaccine available to everyone. Donald will not rest until he has done all he can to take care of everyone impacted by this terrible pandemic. I want to extend my gratitude to all of the healthcare professionals, frontline workers and teachers who stepped up in these difficult times. Despite the risk to yourselves and your own families, you put our country first, and my husband and I are grateful. I have been moved by the way Americans have come together in such an unfamiliar and often frightening situation. It is in times like this that we will look back and tell our grandchildren that through kindness and compassion, strength and determination, we were able to restore the promise of our future. Businesses stepped up and volunteers stepped in. People were eager to share ideas, resources, and support of all kinds with neighbors and strangers alike. It has been inspiring to see what the people of our great nation will do for one another, especially when we are at our most fragile. Speaking of strength and determination, we recently celebrated the 100-year anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. Yesterday, on the North Lawn of the White House, we unveiled an exhibit dedicated to women's suffrage. The exhibit called on children from across the country to send art honoring the meaning of this important time in women's history. When I was judging the entries, I reflected on the impact of women's voices in our nation's story, and how proud I will be to cast my vote again for Donald this November. We must make sure that women are heard and that the American dream continues to thrive. Growing up as a young child in Slovenia, which was under communist rule at the time, I always heard about an amazing place called America, a land that stood for freedom and opportunity. As I grew older, it became my goal to move to the United States and follow my dream of working in the fashion industry. My parents worked very hard to ensure our family could not only live and prosper in America, but also contribute to a nation that allows for people to arrive with a dream and make it reality. I want to take the moment to thank my mother and father for all they have done for our family. It is because of you that I'm standing here today. I arrived in the United States when I was 26 years old. Living and working in the land of opportunity was a dream come true, but I wanted more. I wanted to be a citizen. After 10 years of paperwork and patience, I studied for the test in 2006 and became an American citizen. It is still one of the proudest moments in my life because with hard work and determination, I was able to achieve my own American dream. As an immigrant and a very independent woman, I understand what a privilege it is to live here and to enjoy the freedoms and opportunities that we have. As First Lady, I have been fortunate to see the American dream come true over and over again. I have met many inspiring women, children, parents, and families who have overcome life-changing issues that include addiction, homelessness, family members who are ill or have passed away, abuse of all kinds, and many other challenges that would make most people give up, the past 3.5 years have been unforgettable. There are no words to describe how honored, humbled, and fortunate I am to serve our nation as your First Lady. After many of the experiences I've had, I don't know if I can fully explain how many people I take home with me in my heart each day. From brave soldiers who give up so much so that we can be free, to children of all circumstances who I have met around the world. Thank you for inspiring me. It is my greatest honor to serve you. When I speak to members of the military, despite sacrificing time with their families, experience the fear of war or suffering loss, they have no regrets about serving our country. The same goes for their families and the families of first responders who often watch their loved ones walk out the door, not sure if or when they will come home. When I speak to families who have lost someone, the pain mixed with pride I hear in their voices is something I think about often. So thank you to all who serve our country in the military and as first responders. And thank you to the families who wait for them. You are our heroes in your own right. I have also been moved by the many children and families I've spent time with at hospitals, schools, and other locations around the world. Children who are dealing with pain or illness that would break even the strongest adult. Parents who are grateful to wake up every day and see that their child is still alive. These families are a testament to what faith and medicine, strength and science can do. On my first international trip as First Lady, my husband and I visited places of great significance to the three major religions: Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. One special memory from that trip is of a young boy I had the privilege of visiting while at Bambino Gesù Hospital in Rome, Italy. While there, I read the little boy a story and learned that he and his family had been waiting for a heart for a very long time, and he had a grim prognosis. His situation brought my staff and me to tears, and we spoke of a little else as we flew to Belgium for the next part of our trip. Upon landing just a few hours later, we learned that a heart had been donated and would be going to the little one. I think about him often, along with so many amazing and strong young patients across our own country. More profound and sadly unavoidable examples of our country's strength and character have occurred in the communities that have been impacted by natural disasters. Hurricanes, tornadoes, and flooding may show the ugly side of Mother Nature, but in their aftermath, they can show us a beautiful side of humanity. My husband and I have visited many places that have been affected by natural disaster, and we are deeply moved by the strength of the people who have lost everything and the kindness of neighbors and communities. The common thread in all of these challenging situations is the unwavering resolve to help one another. I recognize the stories I just told about people who survive extraordinary circumstances, but Donald and I are also inspired by the millions of Americans who wake up each day with a simple yet courageous goal of providing for their families and keeping them safe. You are the backbone of this country. You are the people who continue to make the United States of America what it is, and who have the incredible responsibility of preparing our future generations to leave everything even better than they found it. Just as you are fighting for your families, my husband, our family, and the people in this administration are here fighting for you. No matter the amount of negative or false media headlines or attacks from the other side, Donald Trump has not and will not lose focus on you. He loves this country, and he knows how to get things done. As you have learned over the past 5 years, he's not a traditional politician. He doesn't just speak words. He demands action, and he gets results. The future of our country has always been very important to him, and it is something that I have always admired. In fact, it is to help ensure a better future for our next generation that I launched Be Best, my initiative to help children achieve their fullest potential. Be Best has one simple goal: teaching youth about the importance of their well-being, both mentally and physically. This also includes understanding online safety and the dangers of opioid and drug abuse. Through Be Best, my office and I have been able to highlight people, programs, and organizations that are doing extraordinary things in our country and around the world. I continue to believe that by shining a light on these positive examples, others across the country and globe will become inspired to do their part for our next generation. Helping children is not a political goal. It is our moral imperative. When I think back to a defining moment of Be Best, my mind goes to a trip I took to Africa. On that vast and beautiful continent, I was able to visit the countries of Ghana, Malawi, Kenya, and Egypt. One of those visits, in particular, had a profound impact on me. Ghana, on the coast of West Africa, was the first stop on my trip, and I experienced firsthand its warm people and their traditions. While there, I visited the Cape Coast Castle and learned more about the beginning of a cruel and often deadly journey in the era of the slave trade. I was horrified when I listened to the guide tell me so many inhumane stories, and I gained new perspectives. It is time in our history we must never forget, so that we can ensure that it never happens again. Like all of you, I have reflected on the racial unrest in our country. It is a harsh reality that we are not proud of parts of our history. I encourage people to focus on our future while still learning from our past. We must remember that today we are all one community comprised of many races, religions, and ethnicities. Our diverse and storied history is what makes our country strong, and yet we still have so much to learn from one another. With that in mind, I like to call on the citizens of this country to take a moment, pause, and look at things from all perspectives. I urge people to come together in a civil manner so we can work and live up to our standard American ideals. I also ask people to stop the violence and looting being done in the name of justice, and never make assumptions based on the color of a person's skin. Instead of tearing things down, let's reflect on our mistakes, be proud of our evolution, and look to our way forward. Every day, let us remember that we are one nation under God, and we need to cherish one another. My husband's administration has worked to try and effect change when it comes to issues around race and religion in this country. He is the first president to address a special session of the United Nations General Assembly to call upon countries across the world to end religious persecution and honor the right of every person to worship as they choose. He has made substantial investments in our historically black colleges and universities. This president also continues to fight for school choice, giving parents more options to help their children flourish. My husband knows how to make a real change. From the day that I met him, he has only wanted to make this country the best it can be. For many years, I watched him grow concerned and frustrated, and I'm so proud to see the many things he has done in such a short time. America is in his heart. So while at times we only see the worst of people and politics on the evening news, let's remember how we come together in the most difficult times. And while debate rages on about issues of race, let's focus on the strides we have made and work together for a better tomorrow for everyone. Our administration has also devoted historic resources and produced life-saving results by raising awareness around opioid addiction and drug abuse, especially for children. When so often the headlines are filled with gossip, I want to take this moment to encourage the media to focus even more on the nation's drug crisis. This disease is one that affects everybody. It pays no attention to race, age, or socioeconomic status. Addiction has touched every part of our society in some way. And now, more than ever, we have programs and medicine to combat it. We just need to talk about it openly. And you, the media, have the platforms to make that happen. To the media industry and as a country, I ask that we all commit to helping in our fights against drug addiction by talking about it even more. Especially as we battle the COVID pandemic, we need to remember that suicides are on the rise as people who are struggling with loneliness and addiction feel they have nowhere to turn. Parents, please talk to your children. Teachers and caregivers, pay attention to signs of addiction. Lawmakers, pass legislation that allows those who ask for help to do so safely and without fear, and to provide resources for organizations that help people impacted by addiction. When the stigma is removed, people will no longer be ashamed to ask for help, and lives will be saved. And if you are struggling with addiction, there is no shame in your illness. Please seek help. You are worth it. In my next 4 years as First Lady, I will continue to build upon Be Best and work with individual states to pass legislation to take care of our most vulnerable. I plan to continue the work I have started with children in foster care, as well as the minority communities and tribal nations. I want to ensure children are being protected and communities have the resources needed to combat drug addiction and child neglect or abuse. Like my husband and the administration, I will continue to encourage education that supports a child's individual needs. It is vital that children are given the building blocks to succeed. I also look forward to continue my work to restore the People's House, which is a lasting symbol of pride for our nation. I believe this iconic home needs to be cared for and preserved so it can be enjoyed by the people of this country and visitors from around the world for years to come. I'm passionate about this beautiful house, the grounds, and all they represent. And now I have a special message for the mothers of this country. This modern world is moving so fast, and our children face challenges that seem to change every few months. Just like me, I know many of you watch how mean and manipulative social media can be. And just like me, I'm sure many of you are looking for answers how to talk to your children about the downside of technology and their relationships with their peers. Like every parent in this country, I feel there are so many lessons to teach our son and responsibilities as his mother, but there are just not enough hours in the day to do it all. I remind myself that I'm more fortunate than most and still have days that I look for wisdom and strength to do the very best I can for him. To mothers and parents everywhere, you are warriors. In my husband, you have a president who will not stop fighting for you and your families. I see how hard he works each day and night, and despite the unprecedented attacks from the media and opposition, he will not give up. In fact, if you tell him he cannot be done, he just works harder. Donald is a husband who supports me in all that I do. He has built an administration with an unprecedented number of women in leadership roles and has fostered an environment where the American people are always the priority. He welcomes different points of view and encourages thinking outside of the box. I know I speak for my husband and the family when I say we are so grateful that you have trusted him to be your president, and we will be honored to serve this incredible country for 4 more years. As you have heard this evening, I don't want to use this precious time attacking the other side, because as we saw last week, that kind of talk only serves to divide the country further. I'm here because we need my husband to be our president and commander-in-chief for 4 more years. He is what is best for our country. We all know Donald Trump makes no secrets about how he feels about things. Total honesty is what we as citizens deserve from our president. Whether you like it or not, you always know what he's thinking. And that is because he's an authentic person who loves this country and its people and wants to continue to make it better. Donald wants to keep your family safe. He wants to help your family succeed. He wants nothing more than for this country to prosper, and he doesn't waste time playing politics. Almost 4 years ago, we went into Election Day completely underestimated. Despite what is being said again this year, I know, just as you do, that Americans will go to the polls and vote on the behalf of their families, our economy, our national security, and our children's future. To vote for those ideals is not a partisan vote. It is a common sense vote, because those are goals and hopes that we all believe in. I believe that we need my husband's leadership now more than ever in order to bring us back once again to the greatest economy and the strongest country ever known. God bless you all, your families, and God bless the United States of America.
I think that this was such an amazing speech for 2 reasons. A, we don't hear much from Melania. I mean, the left is always complaining about her, but she doesn't give many publicized speeches. So it was good to hear her talk for, I think it was like 20 or 25 minutes, about what she has to say. Because at the end of the day, she's the closest to President Trump, personally. And to hear her talk was pretty amazing, and I liked it. It's very, very fresh to me because I don't hear much from her other than, again, the left and their complaining about what's going on. And B, she was very personable to Trump. You notice she didn't say the president or anything like that. She said my husband or Donald. I thought that was a great touch because it connects us with him. It was great stuff. Great stuff, really, it truly was. And that's all we have for tonight. I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow for the coverage of Night 3 and more. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And until tomorrow, good night and God bless.